Hey everybody, it's Bust with Battles of Bust number 483, and today we're doing battle with LeBlanc Gnar. And so, welcome back. We've been on hiatus for about a week. The balance patch has came out since our last video, and very excited to be diving in and seeing what we can do with that. And so, the title of the video today is Why Ashe Sucks, right? And so, I feel kind of bad for Ashe. Ashe LeBlanc is one of the decks that we played in the previous Open. I felt fair about it. It's a deck that's very polarized in terms of what it's good at beating and what it loses to, but I felt like that was a shot I was willing to take in that Open. But over the course of my preparation for that event and getting ready for it, I was never particularly impressed with Ashe. There's basically kind of two modes of usefulness in terms of what Ashe does now that a lot of the kind of reputation kit has been removed from the standard format. And so where she's quite good is if you have one of these boards to where your opponent only has one or two units, you're able to attack with Ashe and a Trifarian Glory Seeker. You frostbite their biggest one, that gets hooked with the Glory Seeker, and then the smallest one has to tango with Ashe if it wants to get into combat, and it's probably too small to actually live. And there are formats in days past to where this style of thing was able to successfully happen with a good amount of frequency. That format is not what we're in right now. And so the first piece of the Ashe kit, not that exciting with what we're facing with today. The second piece is the kind of OTK that she's able to end the games with, to where Ashe is flipped, your opponent's 0-power units can't block, she attacks, frostbite's one of them, and then you hit another two with the harsh winds, and then they're just completely unable to block. And that was the kind of main selling point in terms of playing Ashe. She has a very non-interactive style of game finisher, but that completely gets blown out of the water now with the update to Wrath of the Freylord. And so I'll readily admit that as this format kind of started with the balance patch coming out, this is one of the first things that I immediately went after. I was like, oh, cool, we get another Frostbite unit to play with the Ashe decks. It ties in extremely well in the sense that if you say draw a Crystal Arrow but don't have Ashe anymore, then the Wrath of the Freylord still works. If it gets to Frostbite the other units, that ties in with Ashe. But as I played quite a few games with this, you just found out that was completely unnecessary. The Wrath of the Freylord does all of the work that you want Ashe to do in that kind of game closing stance. And so that second piece of the Ashe strength is no longer needed. And so if we're not finding these game patterns to where Ashe can kind of take over the mid game, if we don't need Ashe anymore because she doesn't win us the late game, we just get that same effect out of Wrath of the Freylord, then why do we even bother playing her? And so that moves us into this kind of space to where we take Ashe out and include Gnar. Gnar is another fantastic champion in this space. He was one of the most played champions over the course of the previous patch, and he still ties in fantastically with this reputation style theme, with his flip side having that 5 attack power. And so, with that in mind, that's what we've really moved this into. In my mind, in my opinion, this is really just a LeBlanc deck, right? And this is just the Gnar as an additional way to take advantage of LeBlanc, and we're really trying to find these avenues and paths to where LeBlanc can really shine, generate those mirror images, and then take advantage of the mirror images once we have them. And so, with those thoughts together, that's where a lot of the numbers with this style of deck really come from. We're playing the 3 copies of Elixir of Iron along with 2 copies of Darkened Spear. That's going to help us try and get LeBlanc up to a more combat ready stat line to where she just doesn't die to literally everything. And then we have a package of units that are strong on their own with things like the Glacial Saurian and the Wrath of the Freylord, but they also tie in extremely nicely with those mirror images. We're going to see lots of games today to where we get to mirror image an Incisive Tactician, generate a bunch of rallies and win that way, use the mirror images to copy the Anaka out of the Darkened Spear, attack with 4 units that way. Just all of the units combo with this very, very nicely. And so that is the main idea and core of the deck. The last thing I'll say before we dive into the rest of the way is if you go and take a peek at runeterra.ar and see a lot of the Ashe LeBlanc style lists, I tend to hate most of them. If you ever ask yourself, do you want to play Legion Marauder? You do not. That's going to be completely trashy. Just the Marauder theme is very nice when it works. But when you have those games to where it's like turn 7 and you need a really strong play and you're like, oh, cool, I have a 4-3 Legion Marauder that I can add to the board, you're not going to be super happy in that stance. The other thing is we've seen like the real power of the Omen Hawks these days. Why it was buffed in the most recent patch, I'm not entirely certain, but I am quite a big fan of this early game package of Omen Hawk and Darkened Spear, and being able to buff the upcoming units. It just generates a lot of these really big high roll draws that the opposing decks aren't able to take advantage of. So if we're playing a mirror match, you play a 3-3 Gnar, we play a 4-4 Gnar, we have just an immediate advantage there. And then since so much of the removal in this format is tied to damage, with Janna just being the most popular deck at the moment and receiving no real nerfs over the course of the balance patch, it helps you soak up those mystic shots and things. So your 2 power unit or your 2 health units with the boost from Omen Hawk now survive mystic shots, and then it lets you say protect LeBlanc from mystic shots on the ways down the line, as to where if you can get that bonus and make your opponent need to spend 2 removal spells instead of 3, then it's been a very effective Omen Hawk. And so, before we dive into the games, another little piece of announcement: the Champion Draft Series Season 2 is going to be coming up. As this video is released, the draft should be appearing later this evening, and we're going to be battling in Season 2. We were asked to join. Very excited to get to participate in this. A lot of big names running through, lots of Worlds competitors and strong challengers out there. So a few other content creators along the list. Yasuo's best friend and Jay Sensation will be out there as well, and it looks to be a lot of fun. And so if you're interested in following along with this, I'll mention it in our next video as well, but the links to the Champion Draft Series YouTube and Twitter and stuff will be down in the description. And so, with that out of the way, I checked in on the pay-to-win price. We're all paid up. Everything in this deck, all premium, except Wrath of the Freylord. Poor guy. maybe one day. There's a very good chance we'll play Wrath of the Freylord in the upcoming Open, and so he'll have his time to shine, I'm sure. But, all right, reasonable enough start with our Omen Hawk. Look for some other early game stuff to go along with it. See what we can do against Ionia, the Karma Sett Ionia. It's typically the ramp deck. It's an interesting deck in the sense that it usually annihilates all of the other Karma Sett decks, but then it's pretty weak to the rest of the format. So we'll see how that plays out here. The Omen Hawk was a bit of a bummer to see hit the board. It's going to limit our ability to boost with the Trifari and Glory Seeker, but we are going to have these +2/+2s on our next units at the top of the deck, and so hopefully that's pretty tough for them to deal with. Can't be using brittle steels and the like on our units that got all of those extra bonus stats.
The best lies are beautiful.
So LeBlanc should be pretty safe. Again, it's pretty awkward that this Omen Hawk has hit the board, really limiting our usage of the Trifari and Glory Seeker, but I think we'll be okay otherwise. And so now I want to add the Pioneer. I don't think there's going to be landmarks coming out of this deck. There shouldn't be equipment coming out of this deck. We'll just pick up the disable keywords thing. Maybe we can take Challenger off Sett at some point, but this is going to be a fairly weak usage of the Explorer this game. But we're about to have something absolutely massive on top of our deck. We haven't been drawing any units, so whoever's on top's got +3/+3 up at this point. LeBlanc, just the actual worst possibility. Okay, fine. Things are gonna be that way. What do we got now? It's a little bit of a different story though with Gnar, right? Get that 6/6 Gnar on the board. Oh my gosh, Singular Will. Okay, I think we have to send away our LeBlanc. This is just a little bit too good. I've been curious if a card like Singular Will would come back and make an appearance. It's if you played Magic. There was a card called Upheaval, which returned all the non-land permanents to the owner's hand. And so you could do very interesting stuff with Upheaval in the sense that if you had, say, access to... It costs 6 mana, so if you had, say, access to 9 mana, then you could... add the mana to your pool and then play a come on, cat. Whew, there we go. So if you had that mana left over, you could add the mana to your pool and then play your spells after the fact, so everything would get returned and then you could follow up afterwards. I've been always curious if there wasn't something you could do in Runeterra to where you're able to get that big stack of units on board, but it never seemed like it was quite a possibility. This has been pretty nasty. That singular will just completely took over this game. I'm just leaning in towards the Gnar now. Well, he's going to be attacking this round, right? Let's add the Omen Hawk. So if he does attack with the Mystic, I assume he's going to. We can block, take the damage, but leave the Mystic with only 5 health. So we have a spot to where our 5 power attackers are going to be strong. Also have the Gnar for next turn to where we can maybe get an attack in for 5 and then pokey stick it down. It's like, oh my gosh, is this going to be another singular will? That is not what we want to see. This is just getting worse and worse. He's only got 2 mana at this point, so we should have a pretty decent bloody business. But not particularly happy with how this is turning out.
For glory. You're mine. My move.
All right, let's see how it goes. So we have the bloody business. Maybe we shouldn't have hit with Omen Hawk. That's a fairly safe block down onto it, but otherwise the remainder of our attack's pretty strong. Alright, so Gnar's gonna flip. We'll go ahead and drop the pokey stick. I don't know if this deck plays Nopify or not. It wouldn't surprise me if it did, but it's a safe spot to go ahead and try and take this unit off the board. Now that we're getting kind of this full board and we have the mana banked up a little bit, we could start to Harsh Winds this Sky Singer. Give us an opportunity to not worry about that damage. That lifesteal, we should say. We do have the... Oh, man. I'm regretting. I took the refreshments so that we would have a little bit of extra utility in this space, but I'm kind of regretting that as well. This would be a very good unit to take the lifesteal off of with the Explorer spells. But let's see if we can't just win this game next turn. We'll get the Cub on board. We can hook the Sky Singer way out of combat with our little Omen Hawk. We can hook the Smooth Mixologist with the Scholarly Pioneer. Then we still have, I don't know, 20 damage units getting ready to roll through before any of the lifesteals can happen, and then a perfect draw on the Tactician. Let's go.
Smoke and mirrors.
We'll send in something like this. Again, I don't want to get too involved with these other units, but ideally we can just play the Tactician and take the game down. Bit of a bummer in that sense. It's got to run out of Harsh Winds at some point, though, right? All right, and I think we want to get this Darkened Spear down. It's not spectacular here, but we don't have a ton else to do, and I would kind of like to spend the mana. I don't think we're going to be playing a Naka anytime soon. We can put the Spear just like onto our Challenger unit, so we can try and get the bonuses, but not be at risk of opponent being like, all right, well, I'm gonna ignore that guy and just leave the Spear on the board the whole game. All right, now Sett comes in. Hopefully, I mean, he's played 2 Harsh Winds. Hopefully we don't have to worry about too much in terms of in terms of like flash freezes to try and stop this. Let's see how it goes. Seems like it's going okay. And a recall. That's fine. That's very slow to get Sett back on the board. He doesn't get to do his Challenger attack this turn. We can open attack next turn. Should be good to go. He's got 3 coins in hand, and so no worries about him coming back down this round. Oh shit, he just got a fresh coin back in hand. I guess there are worries about that happening. Ugh. That's a problem.
No holds barred. You, me, in the ring.
Alright, not yet, LeBlanc. We won't let you go that easy. And the obliterate onto the mother, sure.
They call this getting your bell rung.
So we'll see how this next turn looks. I mean, that was a little bit unfortunate to have things roll down that way, but I think it's okay. We're gonna explore his blunder onto the Sky Singer, but we can wait until next turn before we do that. Get an extra usage out of that power.
My move.
That's all we get, huh? That's not a bad start. Surprised we still haven't reputationed on this board. Portal Pioneer. How bad could that be? It doesn't seem that bad, right?
They admire the rose, but forget its thorns.
So I'm looking at this. I mean, he just played the Explorer. I'm curious what he takes. It's probably to blow up the equipment on the Pioneer, but I wasn't particularly worried about that. Ugh, not a bad draw.
Bustin' heads. The day is young.
Well, this one is still free. This one's probably over. Got to see how many manas he can generate next turn, but it was a pretty good combo of cards. Here's the game breaker though, right? If we can get our Wrath of the Frey Lord going next turn, really, I guess he has more blockers than I'm really excited to see, but it's a lot of power to be adding in.
Victory requires a sharp blade.
Then as long as we don't lose our Tactician next turn, we can still generate a rally with this mirror image in hand. Hi fam, let's get ready for combat. Three Sisters was a decent pickup as well. We can potentially flash freeze one of his units here and get some extra usage out of that. Maybe not. It was it was a thought. It was an idea.
To plunder is to die.
Something I said.
So many card draws. How many is he up to at this point? He's got 14 left. I guess he still just hasn't been able to put a karma on the board. Sett's flipping this turn though, right? He's got the mana to show stop. Yeah, we probably should have healed beforehand, huh? That's kind of problematic now, having to spend a Three Sisters just to have our Tactician not die. That's bad. This Explorer's Refreshments is not looking too good.
Why don't you sit this one out? Hey, Meg.
Okay, we messed this one up all over the place. Like, I was a little bamboozled by a lot of the things that we were running into in that game. I feel like if we got to just start that one over and play it again, we'd have been able to take that one down. I feel like at a minimum, we probably messed up 7 things that game, and so it's wild to see like how deep the opponent can get into their deck and then still just be like right on the cusp of losing. And so I think that turned out fairly well. And that's another one of those spots in the same sense that I don't feel like Karma would have even won that game. Like, it's tough. You don't know what's actually in their hand, but I feel like that would have been a very challenging Karma to actually do a lot with. I mean, I know you get to play the pack your bags and draw a bunch of cards and stuff, but it didn't feel like a hand to where she was going to be spectacular. All right, on to the next one, though, up against Champion Strength Janna. See how this goes. We'll hang on to our Omen Hawk, look for some more of our early game friends. Oh, Teemo, everyone's early game friend. All right, not a bad curve. It'd be kind of nice to have back our have back some of our cheaper plays, but running into the Scholarly Pioneer here feels pretty good. I'm gonna go for the Quicksand. This deck doesn't typically play nonsense like Sunken Temple, so I think he should be pretty okay in this space. Float him up. Should be fine to offer up the trade against Teemo. Like, we're going to play Gnar next turn. The opponent needs to be adding units to the board, right? And so, like, there is the chance, I guess, that he takes the 3 bank here, plays Janna next turn, and then does the 3 damage spell onto Gnar. But if he's not producing like that exact line, then I feel like Gnar into the Solarion is still going to happen, and we don't need this Omen Hawk around to make sure the Solarion draws the card. You all seen any point in any of these games where you want Ashe? I didn't think so. It's like I guess she's like moderate on this board. She's not horrible on this board, but I don't know. I don't feel like I'm excited about the prospects of Ashe here. So the thing we'll have to decide on this upcoming turn is if we actually want to add the Saurion in, or if we want to go for the save the mana for the Elixir of Iron. Now that we drew LeBlanc, we're 100% keeping this Elixir of Iron mana up. She's a very strong play on this turn. But it would have... It's tough. It would have likely warranted an open attack, but like just playing the Saurion after combat sounds terrible. But LeBlanc here to save the day. Feels good. So now if he wants to just like completely get out of taking damage, he has to add another unit to the board. Really ties up a lot of what they want to be doing. All right, now that he matches his unit for unit, we'll leave the old Omen Hawk at home. Not too worried about Teemo at this point. It's like, if he wants to go for a champion strength play, we still have the Harsh Winds and stuff. We have the blocker and our Omen Hawk. He's not particularly scary at this point. Like, I guess this does give him some opportunity to, say, kill off the Castaway, get the equipment back, and put the equipment on Teemo, but it doesn't sound very exciting. Ready. Get this elixir down. It's ready to go. On Mariam. Okay. I guess we can live with Mariam getting the boost. Then there's no need to pokey stick this turn. You can save the manas for next turn. Oh, Gnar just got in. I was thinking in my head, there's no way he doesn't let these units get through without blocking, but not the case. They definitely just did it. And here's old Wrath of the Freylord. You say, I can't get my Warden of the Tribes anymore. Got to count on our new 8-mana friend, Wrath of the Freylord, but that's where he's so good in these spaces, right? Even if opponents still had Teemo on the board, dropping the Wrath of the Freylord so much better in that space even than Ashe would be, given that Ashe would only stop one of those units from blocking, to where Wrath of the Freylord shuts down all of them except the equipped unit, and then we have the chance to just flash freeze the equipped unit. So very powerful. All right, let's see if we can't do a little bit better this game with the Jafari and Glory Seekers. They got shut down pretty hard by the Omen Hawks and the last time we played this matchup, but we got a little bit of protection here now. I was gonna say we'll go ahead and try and get the trade, knowing that we have the Glory Seeker. Getting his Omen Hawk off the board would be kind of nice. He's gonna get the 5 damage blast. I love it when this happens. You just get that 5 damage nugget right out the gates. Boom. Sure thing. Still need a little something to do. It's gonna feel pretty bad on this next turn if we just have to overbank literally all of our mana. But great draw with the Assessor. Oh shit! I thought we were gonna get the block. I got so excited about that Assessor turning up that I was like, oh man, we're just running over this game. That was a little sloppy. It's okay. If you're not out there getting excited every once in a while, why even bother? So who do we want to go with here? We have the dog in hand, but it's at the point to where it gets to just flip really soon. I mean, but LeBlanc is so strong here. We'll probably find ourselves spending at least 1 mana this turn. That guy's strong. I think we still just want to battle. Like we can flash freeze the Sky Singer if we want with the 3 Sisters, so that we're not just getting like completely domed by what it's able to do. I think that's where we want to be. Just go ahead and get our LeBlanc flipped, get that mirror image in our hand, start to wear this unit down. Also gets it in the space to where if you want to stop and imagine that we didn't just waste our Brittle Steel, getting this unit down to 2 health would get it into Brittle Steel range, so that we can flash freeze it on future turns. But hey man, I got excited, you know? It's our first video back in like 9 days. Sometimes you just start slapping the units on the board, you know? Nothing wrong with that. So how are we gonna hang here? We have to block. It's gonna be a matter of, do we want to Elixir of Iron our unit? And I mean, we're in this kind of same spot to where you know, the Frostcoat Cub can come down, or the Glacial Saurion can come down without the bonus, but I think just like having Gnar in hand, feel pretty good about adding Gnar. That gives us the keyword, then we can add the Saurion next turn. Still feels pretty nice, I think. I mean, I guess even the next stage with that, so we can add the Saurion and then play Mirror Image on it, get the second card draw out of it as well. It's pretty strong, although we are getting to the point to where we don't really need the extra cards. Although I'm not gonna complain too hard about the extra cards. Guys, just zinging us every time with this. I gotta get in my head that this thing exists. This is the first time today that I've been seeing these things run around. That open attack would have been much stronger than just getting completely tempoed by that. We got 10 cards as well. This is brutal. Okay. GG. I don't know if we, like, it's not to say that we would have, you know, outright won that game had we open attacked, but we definitely lose that game there without that bit of advantage. And so keep that in mind. The other thing I was wanting to kind of note there that we didn't really get to discuss is that's a space to where you'll get a lot of really powerful plays. If you notice, we had Wrath of the Freylord and Harsh Winds in our hand. That's a lot of what you're really going to be looking for in these spaces, as to where you end up playing the Wrath of the Freylord on your opponent's turn, then you get to open attack and try and get the kill. It's typically like, if they have 5 units on the board, 2 or 3 of them just can't block as it is, and then you get to shut down another 2. And then it's like, even if they have some kind of interactive way to stop some of your combat, their units still just can't block. They don't get that little bit of initiative to try and come in and do something, and so very powerful. We'll see if it comes up in any of our other games. All right, up against Ashe LeBlanc, though, we talked a fair amount of shit about Ashe, so we'll have to see how this goes in terms of these mirror match style of things. The opponent's certainly off to a much better start than we have, but it's okay. See if we can't get some usage out of this Glory Seeker.
I need just a moment.
He's definitely got those stat bonuses on us, though.
Victory requires a sharp blade.
I'm not entirely opposed to getting these Glory Seekers in combat. I think what happens here is he just typically just passes, right? You can't play LeBlanc into these Glory Seekers. He knows that we're going to be coming out here attacking. And so I think this is fine. Go ahead and start kicking up our reputations, and we might be able to combat with LeBlanc here in an upcoming turn. I mean, we have the bloody business to try and strike her down. It's just so expensive to come out and bloody business a LeBlanc and then have her like flash freeze our unit. The way with this mana shaping up, though, we might just have to do it.
Sharpen the blade, secure the kill.
Okay, we know we're at least safe now.
For glory.
I was expecting him to bring in the hook. I guess that would have, like, once he played the Glory Seeker, we should have just gone ahead and taken down his LeBlanc, so that he didn't get the opportunity to get those bonus stats.
I'll cut them apart.
Alright, so we're not adding anything good to the board this turn, so we'll just go ahead and take our swing, add in the Assessor, draw the card, and then we're going to be building up to this just Wrath of the Freylord turn. Very close to getting a kill whenever he's able to come down. So, I mean, this does look like a pretty straightforward Harsh Winds turn. The bummer with the Harsh Winds is our units aren't capable of actually winning any of these combats. But
The best lies are beautiful.
LeBlanc will get pretty close to flipping. We can get a little bit of follow-up next turn with the Scholarly Pioneer being able to hook one of these units down. I think this is okay. We can't just, like, not get involved with this turn.
For glory. Face me.
So it's 12 in the middle. We could technically just make this block on the end and not die. I guess the question starts to become, are we willing to just give up on LeBlanc? I don't think I like that. So we'll see. This does leave us open to the spots to where they can just kill us with Ashe. But I think we have the chance to actually come in and recover here. But yeah, big mountain of stats. You got multiple attacks in with the the Darkened Spear, along with the whatchamacallit, the Omen with the Omen Hawk. Drawing a million's not a big deal. We can still just win the game on our next attack token. So these are the only attacks. It's fairly dangerous. Like there's a very real chance we shouldn't be attacking with this LeBlanc here, but I want to. We gotta kind of have something go right. Okay, GG. That's the power of the Omen Hawks and the spears, though. That's exactly why we're coming out and playing this stuff. If you got the joy of the previous meta to play against like an Omen Hawk into a Weaponsmith Apprentice into a Jax, or any way to give a Jax +2/+2 before he comes down on turn 3, it's just absolutely insane having that stuff come up. And so as we play these mirror matches and the opponents just have the exact same units as us, having all of those things come down can be definitely a big advantage. But I will say, I cannot bring myself to play garbage cards like Reckless Trifarian. That card is bad. And then also, that person wasn't playing Legion Marauders, but if you ever get the idea that, hey, maybe I'd like to play Legion Marauder today, you should probably rethink your day.
I need just a moment.
So let's see. I'm kind of fine with this turn. I'm going to go ahead and throw the Omen Hawk in front of this, in front of the bird, so we can ideally kill it with the Scholarly Pioneer next turn, and then we can just take some time to build up here. I'm going to pick up the Explorer's Blunder, the Quicksand. I don't think we have to worry about equipments coming out of Shen Jarvan here.
My shield is yours.
I haven't seen this guy in ages. Do y'all remember the days when Brightsteel Protector was a 3/2? Poor guy. I wonder if he couldn't be reverted at this point, now that the stats aren't as obscene.
So I go.
All right, but I think we like how this round is shaping up. This was a pretty good collection of trades for us. Losing out on the Glory Seeker, but picking up a bunch of spells in that space. We have this other Glory Seeker we can add in, and then next turn we can Gnar and Omen Hawk if we want. Ideally, get to crash through with all of that stuff. This other Glory Seeker is pretty interesting, though. I think we'll slow down on Gnar. It's like if he plays something to give barriers, right? And then we get actual, you know, a really big value out of this Explorer's Blunder popping a barrier. I'm pretty excited for the prospects of this.
I'll cut them apart. Face me. For glory, you are mine.
Let's just clear it out. There's not a ton of plays to really come in and worry about in this spot. But the thing I do worry about here is him just getting a big board. And we get to shut that down just a little bit. We have a lot of power on the top of our deck from all these Omen Hawks and stuff, but we're kind of weak after that. Little scary, little scary. Maybe that Challenger attack was a little bit too much. Yeah, this Tactician's strong, but our hand sucks so much otherwise. I think we're just stuck in here sending Gnar in. He can't survive this attack. He does get to boost the dragon, but we got to do something with our mana. Doing something with it. Yeah, I'm liking those Challenger attacks that we made less and less. It doesn't feel like they were as good of trades as I really wanted them to be. This is interesting. You're not going to Challenger. There you go. So you're not going to Challenger your dragon?
Our wills align.
So it kind of sucks. Like, the spot that I'm kind of curious with here is, would we prefer to Three Sisters our bird and put it in front of Shen? Like, it's just so easy to have a barrier, but Our hand just doesn't really do anything else. I think we're kind of stuck with it. And the big bummer here is with that Shen flip. If he just has a standard barrier kind of card, he's going to get the bonus stats off of it. So a real chance to just get annihilated on this combat. But this is a game we just have to have something go right.
Time to make an appearance.
All right, LeBlanc, maybe you're a part of that something go right phase of the game. Maybe. Maybe. Oh my gosh. We survived a combat. And the boat. Alright, GG. That was awkward. I'm not stoked with how we played that game. I feel like the thing that's going through my head in that space is the way the Shen decks typically beat you is they're gonna have like one challenge off of a barrier, and that's gonna take down your best unit. But then you still get to kind of get into combat with all of the other stuff, the ones that like really matter. But opponent didn't have a board of units that actually mattered, right? Opponent's board was like Bright Steel Protectors and Petricite Broadwings. Those aren't the units you actually care about. You care about that unit that gets +2 attack when it sees a barrier. You care about that unit that gets barrier when another unit gets barrier. And so I kind of feel like our idea was right in the sense that you can't just let your opponent build up those big boards because everything like compounds in strength, right? So you've got your barrier gainer and your barrier plus attack unit, and like the stats just stack and stack and stack, and it makes like one barrier so super strong. But you can't let your opponent do that. You can't let them generate that width, but they didn't actually have the units on board that mattered. And so I think we were right in the sense that you can't let them develop the width, and that's what I kind of immediately had in mind. But they were developing that width with the wrong units. They're developing it with the units we don't actually care about.
Time to make an appearance.
So we were trading our, kind of only interactive pieces for the cards that weren't really high-powered. But here, this should be safe. I'm fine to not send in the dog. I'd like to be defensive with it. LeBlanc should be safe. This deck doesn't... He's playing Darius Gnar. They don't typically play a bunch of combat tricks. And so you have a little bit of safety net there. This is a little bit painful with the Bone Club coming in, but the Harsh Winds are fine. If we get a big bank out of this turn, that's pretty fine as well. Just give us the time to get our big friends on board. We're not attacking here anytime soon. But I think we'll be able to get the advantage once these Harsh Winds are able to hit the board. He's got to attack with that Ruthless Raider at some point, right? All right, so my guess on what would happen with this board is probably a decisive maneuvers. Not a ton we can really do to stop it, but we can come out and still put blocks on everybody. Let's just go this way. I think we want LeBlanc in front of Gnar. Like, his decisive maneuvers would be he wants to stun the Frostcoat Cub, so he's going to get the damage in, then he's going to get to put the stats over on Gnar. And then we can still Brittle Steel out of that if we need to. So we actually have the LeBlanc spell. We can, like, LeBlanc spell onto the Tusk Speaker and then Brittle Steel somewhere else. Oh. Yeah, it still works out. So he'll get the damage in, but his Gnar's gonna die. Yeah, that's cool. I got taken aback for just a moment there with the brittle steel onto, or being in the spot to where the brittle steel doesn't stop the damage from the decisive maneuvers. Okay. Gross.
Sharpen the blade, secure the kill.
Alright, there comes the Gnar flip. He's not ultra scary though. We can still get in a good combat with him. I like this not getting too crazy with the Ruthless Raider that already has a bunch of stats on it. And so that's felt like kind of a bonus as well. Now, I think we can get a Bloody Business in this turn. So let's do this. Let's add LeBlanc. We'll add in the Icevale Archer. And then after combat, we should be able to Bloody Business. I think we're in a good space. So the thing this does, we're going to be trading away the Trifarian Glory Seeker, right? The idea is we're going to Glory Seek into Gnar. But after that, he's not going to be able to pick up this Bone Club, is the big thing with this attack here. Like, I don't want this Ruthless Raider unit dying. I want that Bone Club just being stuck out here and this unit losing out on a bunch of stats. Ideally, we'll be able to crash in with this just a little bit later. Sure. Still I don't really care about any of these units. it does suck to lose out on the 6 power guy in the sense that if he plays Darius, we don't have a way to take him down. But kind of is what it is. Now that he's under 5 mana, not too worried about this combat and needing to hold on to onto the harsh winds. It should be much better a couple of turns from now. Alright, he's only going to have 1 unit after this combat. We've still got a bunch of dudes. Ideally, we'll be able to get that final damage in now. What you got? Bloody Business is a pretty big deal as well. I think we're good. I think we'll get to finish it on this attack. He's going to drop Darius, and we're going to say, okay. if that's what you want to do today, I guess that's fine. And then with this this Bloody Business, I just don't want it to be off of a Naka. I don't want a Naka getting weakened on this turn. She's definitely coming in with the Thunder. All right, GG. Let's get ourselves 1 more game in. We're getting up to that hour mark. Let's see what we can do. Ooh, definitely feeling rusty. I got to play like a little bit over the past week. Like I'm not just running blind out here in terms of jumping in the game, but I'm definitely rusty. I didn't think we were going to be this bad today. Like I was happy with the number of games I've gotten in this week, but it's tough when you kind of like get in that space to where I go to the gym in the morning and play a little bit of Runeterra there, and then I don't think we hang on to 2 Glory Seekers here. Just it's a little much, just too trade heavy. But you get that time, you play a little bit at the gym, and then play a little bit before work, and you just have like the time throughout the days and stuff to get a little bit of the grind on. And it feels like even though I did play games over the past week, I didn't play nearly as much as I would in a normal week, and so gotta get caught back up. I was curious if he would no attack if we just didn't spend any mana. We kind of got what we wanted there, but
Need just a moment.
I wasn't sure how that was going to pan out. But the mana here does work pretty good. I want to play the Darkened Spear. I want to get involved with Jax. So
Cut them apart. You're mine.
I think this is good. Counter Strike. Okay. It's annoying. The only card that really gets him out of that situation, right? Sky Splitter wouldn't have been enough as Jax would have been too small. So a bit of a bummer to have the combat go down that way, but still pretty strong draw with Gnar. No complaints about him having the +2/+2.
Any takers?
This is one of the things that you get from Gnar that you don't get from Ashe, is a couple of things, right? We have the Yordle in this space right now for the Glacial Saurion, so we have this additional unit that can give us that little bit of card draw piece. But then he also flips into Wallop, which is just so much better than the Ashe spell.
You're gonna wanna watch this.
Or Counter Strike. This is fine. I knew going into this combat we were going to run into some kind of trick. Right, he's not just sitting there with 7 mana and not and not letting things happen. But I think this turn's still turning out okay. A little bit worse with the fish fight popping up, but I was content with the 1. I think this is still okay. Like Jax is kind of far away from flipping, and he doesn't have a ton of opportunity to get on board here. But it could have definitely gone better.
Only the finest serve.
Sure.
I misjudged.
So, I mean, the upside here, he shouldn't have too much left that he can do in terms of interactivity. The downside is if he drops a Ornn here, we're gonna be hurting. The Frostcoat Mother should be scary enough in the face of Ornn. Oh boy, we are just gonna have 3 fish fights, aren't we? That's frustrating. Well, I think that kind of spells 2 different things, right? Number 1, I really suspect he just doesn't have Ornn. And number 2, I mean, his interactivity is hopefully gone at this point. It's been kind of wild, the things we were fighting through here, but I think it's okay.
Old faithful.
Let's see what he plays. You know, we have some chances to stop the Jax from flipping here. We want to preemptively harsh winds.
Whoa, this ain't just a lamb.
That is rough. So it's basically we have to just take the freeze, and then next turn we can play a Naka and hope something good comes of it. But this is definitely tough. Yeah, we'll take the bank. Gotta protect Tanaka with his 3 sisters. We ever just lethal with this guy? I don't think we have it right here. You can get a shot though next turn. We do have the Wrath of the Frey Lord. This is just coming in a little bit out of order. Yep. Why not have it all, you know? I think it's always a fair question, you know? Why not just have everything at every turn of the game? So with this, like, we can't protect this Wrath of the Frey Lord. We have to save the flash freezes for next turn. We're just going to get overwhelmed out of the game if we don't. And so he has that chance to open attack, get the big get the big guy on board. We might be able to survive it this way. There's just a 0% chance we survive it if we play the Three Sisters. Okay, GG. All right, not a bad set of games. Our win rate didn't look as appropriate as I would have liked, but it was kind of sloppy the way that we took that along the way. But nonetheless, I feel like it kind of showcases one of the things that I really kind of came out and called out with the kind of update to this format that the balance patch brought, in the sense that if you played in the previous format, a lot of the just kind of ultra frustrating games that you would run into were the ones to where your opponent goes like Omen Hawk, Jax, or you play Weaponsmith's Apprentice, Omen Hawk, draw Jax next turn, play a Jax with a +2/+2, +3/+3, and you see that kind of like all the way across the course of these games that we played today, right? As we played against Ashe LeBlanc, and we played against Darius Gnar, and then we played against Jax Ornn. A lot of the decks, they have a different kind of mid-game plan, but we all have that same thing in the early game, to where we're playing Omen Hawks and Darkened Spears and Weaponsmith's Apprentice and trying to get those kind of one-ups on stats, because those bonus stats will then come in and snowball the remainder of the game. And so that was one of the things as to why I was really surprised that Riot came in and put an update in on Omen Hawk. Like, Omen Hawk is one of these cards that's kind of borderline too strong as it is. And adding in the thing, now it doesn't show up on the screen, but adding in the thing with the Omen Hawk to where it can block elusives, it really surprised me in the sense that it's basically Riot signaling that in every single Freylord deck that you play, you have to play Omen Hawk. Like, there's just no consideration between any of the Freylord decks that you're bringing to where you're like, wow, I don't want to play this card. And it's even like showcased a little bit in the senses like we were playing against the Singular Will Freylord guy. You know, that guy's out here running Omen Hawks as well. And it just presents these spaces to where a lot of the games can get super snowbally. And I'm, pretty content with it in the space of a thing like Weaponsmith's Apprentice, to where it's tying into like a limited collection of things, and the Forge mechanic all kind of ties together. But the Omen Hawk just presents a lot of these snowbally games as to where you're like, okay, well, I didn't draw any of my bonus stat cards, and you drew 2 of your bonus stat cards. I can just never catch back up. And so it's a bit frustrating to see in that sense. But nonetheless, I do still really like this style of deck. I'm kind of up in the air on how I stand on a lot of things with this, as to where you have a lot of options in terms of what you're doing with the base Freylord decks right now. I think if you are playing this this Freylord and Noxus style, that there's a few comments that I think are pretty spot on. Number 1, Ashe is garbage. Number 2, things like Reckless Trifarian are garbage. Things like Legion Marauder are garbage. And so your decks should not be playing reputation themes, right? Those cards just don't really exist anymore. Trifarian Assessor kind of counts as a reputation card. Things like the Tactician and Bloody Business count. But since we're all out here like playing Glacial Saurion, which I also think needs nerfed, and playing all of these stat boosting kind of cards, you don't really have to work so hard for it that you need to play those bad cards like Ashe, or play things like Reckless Trifarian. And so that's step number 1. I think your deck should look like, if we're ignoring what we're playing here today, your deck should look more like a Darius Gnar deck than it should look like an Ashe LeBlanc deck, right? I think this is the kind of consideration to where we're just playing LeBlanc in place of Darius. We're not playing the Overwhelm package, but I think that's more in tune with what's going to be looking good. And then I think you also need to find in ways to stack the early game bonuses. So we're doing that with the Darkened Spears and the Omen Hawks. Jax Ornn does it a little bit better than this deck does, but Jax Ornn doesn't have the same kind of game path and the same game plans that we have here. And so I think that's where we'll probably see these things kind of push towards. And then Wrath of the Freylord is fantastic. We didn't get too much usage out of it today. But I've really grown fond of this card. I think it's spectacular. I think that it is probably right in tune with the same power level as Warden of the Tribes. We'll have to see, like, if the first like 3 or 4 days of the meta, I think that statement holds true as to where there's a ton of Nyla Janna running around. There still should be a ton of Nyla Janna running around, but the Wrath of the Freylord really helps in those style of matches. Even in these spaces like this, if we start to see more Darius Gnar style decks pop up, it still works, pretty reasonably strong with those as well. And then it can start to get a little bit worse, a little bit worse, a little bit worse as cards like Almond Hawk really pick up in popularity. But nonetheless, I think this is a pretty powerful place to be. I think this is a pretty powerful deck, and I'm really on board with it. And so, good stuff. I had fun with that. I hope you did too, because that is going to do it for us today. So if everyone enjoyed the video, hope you maybe learned a thing or two along the way, and you had a good time watching. So this is Bust, and we thank you for being here.